G'day, it's Fish, an unscheduled beach bum investor. I'm so annoyed with Telstra. Okay. 1 hour and 6 minutes I've been on hold for trying to sort out my account. I was first promised a call back about 5 days ago. It was 5 days ago because 4 different call centre operators have confirmed that for me. Now, I didn't receive that call to discuss the bill. Been charged $1,000 for data use on my mobile. So, hey, Dog, what's up, man? Just fighting the man, doing our thing. Crypto Chronicles, what's going on? Oh man, I'm on hold with Telstra. This is our local service provider in Australia. I just got kicked out of a Telstra store. I just got kicked out of the Tweed Telstra store, and I'm here to bloody bitch about it. Yeah, so 5 days ago they told me I had $1,000 data charge on my phone. I said, well, we've got to talk about this. It's ridiculous. $1,000 for a long-term customer? Come on. Must have paid you $1 million over the years with the companies we've run through you. And that's the truth. Over $1 million to Telstra. And now they want to cut my service completely until I've paid a $1,000 bill. I went into the store to discuss it, and they said, no, well, we can't do that. You have to call the call center. So I said, how am I supposed to call a call center when my phone's been cut off? And he said, well, you can use the phone in here. So I've used the phone in there, and I started making a bit of a scene, and they kicked me out. So now I've used another person's phone, and I've been...
Hi, thanks for your patience there. This is George, and I'm one of the senior case managers.
Great.
Am I speaking with Luke?
You are.
Okay. Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad, thank you. So, you want to speak with someone higher? I want to hear your side of the story, Luke.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. What's happened is that I got hit with a $1,000 data charge, an excess data charge. And given the excessive rates of $10 per gig, I just wanted to speak to somebody about those charges. And what happened is I went into the, well, originally 5 days ago, I was promised, as you can see on my case notes there, I was told I'd be called back by 5 p.m. to discuss that. Now, I haven't received that phone call, but my phone has been cut off. And I've also been kicked out of a Telstra store today.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay, no, that's it. I don't think that that's reasonable to promise me a call to discuss the bill, to not follow through on giving me that phone call, but to cut my phone off without actually speaking to me.
Okay. I'm sorry about that whole experience. I believe the credit management team has contacted you and advised you to make a payment to avoid suspension of the service.
Well, actually, that's incorrect, ma'am. The credit, it might have been the credit team that contacted me 3 times in a row, but I was hung up on, or it disconnected. So you may have been having some problems with your services over there. Now, the problem is that the last time that the person did call, we did actually manage to have the phone call, which was great. But what happened is the end of that phone call concluded with that person agreeing to have somebody call me back by 5 o'clock that afternoon. Now, you can see that on my notes there, ma'am. It was 5 days ago on the 3rd of the 11th. Now,
yeah, I understand where your frustration is coming from. What normally happens is that I acknowledge the opportunity of the consultant who was not able to contact you and discuss the bills. I believe he sent you a get back in touch link if you want to speak to that consultant again. This is what we normally tell customers, especially for front of house consultants, that, hey, if you want to speak to me again, I'll send you a link. All you have to do is just click on that link, and once I'm available, I'm going to get back in touch with you.
No, ma'am. I think you're missing the point. I was promised a phone call.
Okay, a phone call.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if that phone call wasn't made. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to
Ma'am, can I just interrupt? Can I just interrupt?
Where that promised phone call was made, and I'll send a coaching feedback to that consultant who you spoke with.
Sure. Can I just tell you, ma'am, Crypto Chronicles has just said that he's been on prepaid for 5 years. Do you think that maybe Crypto Chronicles is right? That's something I should do. Do you think prepaid might like Crypto Chronicles? Do you know him?
Who is that, sorry?
No, you don't. Oh, okay, never mind. So, so in terms of actually getting my phone reconnected, I mean, obviously, we need to discuss the entire amount with someone senior there. I'm being told that I can get $50 a month unlimited 4G LTE. Again, Crypto Chronicus, he might be wrong, but in any case, ma'am, how do we go about getting this phone reconnected? Surely the only option.
I'll be more than happy to reconnect the service.
Sure.
Once this payment is made.
The full $900.
I can reconnect your service today.
The full $900.
Yes, we can organize the payment arrangement, but we can only reconnect the service once this payment is made. We send you real-time notifications to keep you informed, and so you can stay in control of your costs in terms of extra data charges.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm asking that as a 15-year customer of Telstra, you're telling me the only option to have my service reconnected is to pay a full $900 after Telstra did agree to call me and discuss it, and they failed to do that, ma'am. So you're telling me now that agreement that was made 5 days ago has just all of a sudden become null and void because you've decided not to call me, and now you've just said, well, pay the full $900 or we're not reconnecting your phone. Don't you think that's using monopolised leverage, ma'am?
I'm not discounting that you've been a loyal customer of Telstra for so many years. I appreciate you doing business with us, but we're also running a business. And this is also
28 billion last year, ma'am. 28 billion. 28 billion last year.
I believe Telstra has not failed to contact you in regards to your overdue balance.
Excuse me, miss. Can you see on my account that I was promised a phone call before 5 p.m. on the 3rd of November? Can you see that on my account?
It's not about the issue here is not about the promised phone call. I understand. I acknowledge the opportunity of the consultant. Yes, the phone call was missed, but the point here is we cannot reconnect the service unless this payment is made. The issue here is the billing side of things, not the phone call.
Well, excuse me, miss.
I'm sure you understand where I'm coming from.
I don't.
You are actually rubbing in that phone call that was supposed to be made, right?
No, I'm just saying that it's not fair to promise a phone.
Why your service was interrupted because the payment was not made.
Yes, ma'am, and I was promised a phone call to discuss that, and you decide to not make that phone call but to cut me off anyway. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, I understand. It was actually the system. When the system is detected that there is a balance in the account, it was not manually done by a consultant. We did not cut off services. When a system is detected that there is an overdue balance in the account, automatically it suspends the service.
Okay.
And you knew that there is a balance in the account. I'm also a consumer myself, sir. And if I know that I have this amount due on the account, and I know that my services would be cut off, I'm going to make sure that I do a payment arrangement. I'm going to make sure to make the payment. Because I'm not going to blame the company for cutting my service.
Would you, if
because
you...
This is a shared responsibility between Telstra and consumer.
I understand it's a shared responsibility, ma'am, but I expect you to keep up your part of that responsibility. And when you promise to make a phone call to a customer, that you honour that, and certainly don't.
Yeah.
So don't you think that?
Look, I acknowledge the opportunity of that consultant. I do, and again, I'll be sending a coaching feedback. But
how does coaching feedback help me, ma'am? How does coaching feedback help me?
Look, it all boils down where the root cause is coming from. The root cause is there is a balance in the account. That's why the service was suspended. It's not about the phone call that wasn't made, right?
Well, it is, ma'am, because that's where I prepared was. Excuse me, ma'am. You can't ask me a question and then just talk over the top of me when I'm trying to answer. You just asked me a question. Let me answer it.
Okay, you go ahead. I'm listening.
It is about the missed phone call, because if that phone call was made, we could have properly discussed the situation, and I would have at least had time to get together $900 into account where I could make a payment if that was the end result. To not even give me the option to discuss it first and just say pay it or don't get reconnected after agreeing to discuss it with me first is not servicing your customer, ma'am.
Okay, so since that phone call was not made, you as the customer did not make another phone call to do an arrangement.
So I beg your pardon. So after.
I mean, you said that that phone call was meant to be made, and since that consultant failed to make that phone call with you, right? You did not phone Telstra again to make an arrangement.
Okay, so just to get this straight, ma'am, what you're actually suggesting is that if I make an arrangement with Telstra where they're going to call me and they fail to make that call, it is my responsibility to chase up Telstra. Is that correct?
Yes, because knowing that
of course.
This balance on the account, knowing that I have this balance in the account, and I knew the credit management team has been contacting me. There has been messages telling me that if this payment is not made, my services would be cut off. And if I don't want to, if it's me as the consumer, if I don't want that to happen, I'm going to make sure that I'll look after my account, and I'm going to make sure that my services won't be cut off.
Well, ma'am, if I'm the owner of a $27 billion revenue business a year, I'm going to make sure my customers are well serviced.
Yes, Telstra is a huge company, but see, we're also running a business.
Yes, I understand the business model is very profitable. I've researched it heavily. My question is, what focus do you put on customer service? If you're not returning phone calls when you promised to.
Yes, there was an opportunity of the consultant, but you know why would we, let's just say, why would we rub it in? Why would we focus on that?
Why would we?
That phone call, why would we focus on that? I said we are constantly on the lookout for opportunities to improve our customer service. I'll be sending a coaching feedback. But the thing here is, it all boils down to the bill. The bill was not paid. The services was interrupted. And if this bill is not paid, your services won't be reconnected. That's the bottom line.
So the bottom line is that Telstra originally agreed to call and discuss this with me, and then they didn't do that, and now they've just decided with no discussion. Excuse me, ma'am, I haven't finished. Will you stop cutting me off?
Sorry for being blunt, but you're actually making excuses.
Yes, I am making an excuse, ma'am. I could have had the money ready to pay in the account if that was the end result. Had we? Scar, can you stop cutting me off, please? I've given you an opportunity to spit your mouth out. Now, will you please let me have mine? Have you just hung up on me?
Okay. No, go ahead. I'm listening. I'm with you.
I arranged a phone call to be made to discuss this bill. Now, if I had gotten on that day the phone call that was promised, and the end conclusion was, I'm sorry, sir, we can't do anything about it. You're going to have to pay the full $900. I could have moved $900 over from an account to make that payment to make sure that my account didn't get cut off. Now, because I didn't receive that call, I was unable to make that move of money. And you've just decided to cut my account off. Now, I can move the money tonight, but that doesn't get my account reconnected tonight until tomorrow, until I make the payment. And then what, another 24 hours after that? So I'm without a phone for 2 days because you failed to call me. Do you think that's good customer service? And do you think that's fair on your customer?
Okay, let's say it's not fair to customers, but yet again, this is a shared responsibility.
I understand that, ma'am, and I believe, excuse me.
Your argument here is pointless.
I fulfilled my part of the responsibility by making an arrangement with Telstra to discuss the bill. You didn't fulfill your part of the responsibility, ma'am. Not you personally, but Telstra.
There were phone calls.
From when, ma'am? There was no phone call made.
And I believe there were also, let me have a look. There was a letter sent to you that your service would be disconnected. There was also...
What date was that letter sent to me, ma'am? Was that sent after the 3rd when we would... Excuse me, ma'am.
2 days ago.
If you're talking about anything that was after the 3rd, you're just absolutely talking nonsense, because an arrangement was made on the 3rd for a representative of Telstra.
There was also...
I think we've got all we need, and we're really... Excuse me, ma'am.
There was also a Telstra service suspension warning. It's a text message sent to you about your overdue balance.
What date was that sent?
And I believe that was I believe you receive your bill. Is that via email?
I do receive bills via email, exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
you do receive your bills, right?
Yeah, they come out automatically. Am I right?
Come out automatically.
Yes. So it's it's automatically generated bills. They're not sent by a person, right? So I figured that would get sent regardless because I was still waiting for my phone call. As you said, everything happens automatically, right? So I'm still waiting for this phone call. So anything that happens after that, excuse me, miss, anything that excuse me, can you let me finish a thought? Why do you keep, this is Telstra customer service. Ma'am, you're live on YouTube at the moment. This is a fantastic example of Telstra customer service.
Okay.
You're live on YouTube. I can't wait for you to watch this back. My name's Fish, the Beach Bum Investor.
Okay. You're not actually allowed to do that without my permission.
Oh, well, you'll have to sue me then, and we can meet each other in court.
Yeah, you're not actually allowed to do that without my permission, love.
Oh, yes, I am, actually.
You know that. You're not actually allowed
Under what law?
record phone calls.
Under what law? I'm not recording, I'm streaming.
This is love. I'm sorry, but we're going nowhere. What you have to do is basically, if you want to put that on the media.
It's streaming live now, man.
My argument here is you were not able to. Telstra has not failed to contact you in regards to your overdue balance.
Oh, I think you did. You just admitted it several times.
There were opportunities, yes. However, you were not able to make the payment. And your services are interrupted. I'll be more than happy to resume back your service if you make the payment.
So a full $900. You're not negotiable on that at all. You've got no.
To process the payment now over the phone?
Well, I could agree to making $100 a week, but if you're not even negotiable, I think I might just cancel my service.
I can organize the payment arrangement. However, we cannot resume the service unless the full payment is made.
Grant Roger thinks you're changing your tune now. One of the viewers has commented that you're changing your tone now, that you know that you're live. That's interesting.
No, I'm not.
No?
I had this tone earlier.
Okay, good. All right, so what can you do for me to get my phone reconnected? So are we able to come up with a payment plan?
I cannot reconnect your service unless the full amount is made.
So you're not prepared to make a reasonable arrangement of $100 a week?
I can put a payment arrangement in the account, but the system won't resume back the service unless the full payment is made.
Right.
I can make a payment arrangement. I can launch that in.
Oh no, I don't need that. That's fine, man. I'm not going to pay you a cent. There's not a chance. We'll be going to court, and I've got video evidence here of you saying that you had agreed to call me.
That's a threat, yeah, or if that's a threat or a warning. Okay, all right, no worries. So how would you like me to move forward with this?
How would I like you to move forward?
We're going nowhere. This is pointless. How would you like me to move forward with this?
Is there a supervisor I can speak to?
You're already talking to someone higher. Who do you wish to speak with?
Would I be able to speak to someone within the Australian team, please?
Well, all of us here are Filipinos.
Yes, ma'am. I understand that. No, I understand that. But is there a transfer you can make to the Australian office?
It should be someone at the Telstra store.
I went into the Telstra store. They put me onto you, man. I went into the Telstra store and they said they couldn't discuss it.
So, we don't have Australians here.
Okay, ma'am. So I actually did what you suggested. Yeah, I understand that. I've got no issue with that. I'm just saying that maybe I can speak to somebody at head office, man, because I went into the Telstra store and they put me onto you. So I'm just trying to get to somebody senior to get a resolution here, because I believe I've been mistreated. I believe by not returning a phone call that was promised, you've put me in a very difficult position.
Again, my resolution is we'll organize the payment arrangement once the payment is made, once full payment is made, once the system is detected that your service would be reconnected.
So, ma'am, you accused me of rubbing in the fact that you guys made a mistake of not calling me back. Now I'm accusing you.
We're going nowhere. Again,
excuse me, I haven't finished. How can you tell whether I'm going nowhere?
We will only
I'm wondering why you choose on rubbing in the fact that I overused my data. I mean, that was in the past. Do we have to keep rubbing that in? Miss?
Again, we're sending you notifications to keep you informed and for you to stay in control of your costs.
That's not really answering that question.
Again, yes. And again, as a consumer, if I don't want that my bill would be higher than expected, then I'll make sure that I won't be using my data. If I go over my allowance, I'm going to stop it.
Okay, that's good. And when a company calls you as a customer, because you are a consumer, so when you're a consumer and a company makes a promise to you and they fail on that promise, how do you react?
And again, I'm sorry about what happened, as I said earlier. We'll send the coaching feedback to that consultant.
No, I didn't. Excuse me.
For opportunities to improve our customer service. I'm sorry, but we discussed this earlier and we're going nowhere.
No, I just said as a customer.
We're going around in circles, sir.
No, I haven't asked that question before. I said as a consumer, you've referred to yourself as a consumer and what you would do several times. So I'm asking you to do that once more and tell me, as a consumer, how would you react when a big company has told you they're going to call you back and discuss things and then they don't? Would you be satisfied as a customer?
I would be satisfied as a customer. I wouldn't. But then, and yet again, it all boils down. Me as a customer, a shared responsibility between Telstra and consumer.
So you've admitted you wouldn't be happy as a customer.
I wouldn't be happy, but then me knowing that I have this overdue balance in the account, and I'm going to be upset once my service is interrupted. Just like what you want now. You want your services reconnected.
I wasn't expecting my service to be disconnected after being agreed to make a phone call, man. I wasn't expecting when a company of the size of Telstra.
I'm sorry, look, but this is pointless.
Okay. So if
anything else I may be of help?
Yes, there is one more thing you could be of help.
Because this is pointless. Again, the resolution is I'll always go back to my resolution. Organize the payment arrangement. Once the payment is made in full, once the system detects that, your services would be reconnected again. At this stage, my apologies, we cannot reconnect the service.
I understand that. Now, you asked me if there's anything else you could help with. There is one more question I have for you. The question I have for you, if you were promised a phone call from a large corporation who you'd done a lot of business with over the years, and they failed to make that phone call and it left you in a really, really bad position, how would you react as a customer? What would you do? What would your course of action be?
I answered your question earlier. Why are you asking me that again?
You didn't ask. What would
I think it's not something that we need to talk about right now because I answered the question earlier.
I've got 23 minutes of footage here that says you didn't answer that question,
right.
But so.
I answered the question earlier, and it's not something that we need to talk about because your complaint is not merely about it.
Yeah, I asked what would you. I'm just asking what would your course of action be, man?
I'm sorry, look, but
would you? Okay, one more question.
Look, I'm sorry, but enjoy the rest of your day.
One more question.
Thank you for your time. Was your query resolved today? Press 1 for yes, 2 for no, or 3 if it's too early for you to know.
Well, I'd say 2. We'll go with 2.
If your issue wasn't resolved, if you'd like me to put you through to another consultant, press 1.
Oh, yes! I could do this all day.
I'll put you through now.
Let's go again. Oh, they got to give them more than a script if they're going to debate with fish. That was so funny when she figured out she was on YouTube. Didn't her tone of voice just change completely? She went back to bitch mode pretty quickly though. That's a supervisor. Oh man, don't even get me started. How are you, Grant Rogers? Sorry about that. A bit of fun. How's the crypto economy looking anyway while we wait? Let's have a look. I'm going to have a quick look. Ooh, accounts up. Nice to see. Dropped a little. Hey, PIVX is down. Get in there and buy some PIVX. Lisk has been pretty bullish today. Still up 10.4. 10.7% against BTC. BTC itself's kicked back really nicely, 73.55 on PIVX at the moment. Lisk is rocking, man. Like I said, buy it under $5, right? See, I'm not a bad person. I just hate bad customer service. Can you believe that just then? I know, okay, talk crypto. We'll get on to annoying Telstra in a second. So for those of you who don't know, I've been kicked out of a Telstra store today. I've been insulted a few times over a phone call that they failed to make to me, leaving me without a phone service. I would have happily had the $900 in the account ready to pay had we made that conclusion after the phone call that they've admitted that they failed to make. So I'm just hassling them as long as I can. Might as well do a scream and a phone call at the same time. So let's look crypto. We'll put this over here for a second so you don't have to listen to it. We'll get it back over when I get onto them. So yeah, it's been an interesting little session since earlier today. It's only been sort of 4 or 5 hours since I was last on and getting kicked out of Telstra stores. So really good for the people who did get in on list below $5. I'm just going to have a look at the charts now. I should have put Telstra's customer service / crypto chat. The chick needs a job. No. Oh man, tell me about it. I used to work, like I used to get people bark down the phone at me like I just did all day. Man, I worked in an industry where we supplied television services to the patients in hospital. You can imagine how stressed they are at times, and I just got yelled at for things that were unnecessary. And I sat there and said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, how can I help? How can I make it better? Always. They could call me the worst names in the world and I wouldn't flinch, because that's what giving good customer service is. Simple, right? You've got to get the customer thanking you at the end of the phone call. That was always my challenge. If I had a customer ring me in a mood like I am, my aim was to get them to say thank you by the end of the phone call. If I'd done that, I'd achieved my job. Anyway, list. Looking nice, looking bullish. Couple of good green candles there at the end of it. Yeah, exactly, Crypto Chronicles. You got to have fun with it, man. Like, she's taking it too seriously. It's one of those things. You can't get good customer service from big companies anymore. I can do some live calls with PayPal and eBay to prove that with you. I have the same problems. Yeah, she's worked up. I mean, I don't like to work people up, man, but it's a valid point I have, right? It's like, I called them, they said, you got a $1,000 charge. I said, all right, can we at least talk about this? I'm getting charged $10 a gig. I'm a 15-year customer. My family used to own companies that spent well over $1 million with your company. Can we talk about this? We still own some of those companies too. So I'm gonna have to pull everything from Telstra. It sucks because they have got good coverage, but that I can't accept that. I can't accept that customer service I've just received. I can't accept being kicked out of the Tweed call center. I can't accept these hold times. Guys, I criticize because I can. The call center that I set up in Sri Lanka, our what do you call them? Our metrics were incredible. Our KPIs. We were answering calls. We don't have a stupid thing at the start asking you to press 15 different buttons to start with, and we'd have everything answered within 30 seconds. Like 99.9% of calls answered within 30 seconds. Our abandon rate was less than 1%. We had a really tight call center going, and when I see that from a company that was worth $30 million that sent me over to do that, to set the call center up, and I see a company that turns over $28 billion a year, billion, giving me this sort of customer service. I mean, 2 hours on the phone. You've got to ask what's going on, and this is where blockchain has an answer. Anyway, I'm sick of this. You're probably sick of hearing me rant. I'm going to catch up with you all tomorrow for another cryptocurrency discussion. And what's Crypto Chronicles saying? My cell code just slows your data speed after you hit your limit. Yeah, well, mate, we're no extra charges. Do you hear that, Telstra? Cryptochronicus has a message for you. Look, I'll cut up bits of this because then we can get a nice 5-minute video, and that'll get more hits. Because Telstra, I'm done with you. You're just bloody useless. And the funny thing is, you guys want to hear something funny? Is a month ago I contacted Telstra head office in Melbourne about sponsoring myself and another rider who I'm not even going to bring her name into this. And all I was asking for is phones and plans, and now we wouldn't accept. Sorry, office off the table, Telstra. I don't represent companies I don't believe in. So, peace out. See you tomorrow, guys.